Hey everyone, thanks for coming out. I know it was a tough time to come out today because you're all missing the premiere of the new Lifetime show, Double Divas. And I almost didn't show up because I was pretty stoked for that. It's when the two women, this is a real thing, the two women they're helping women everywhere find the right bra. That's great. I'm recording it though, so it's okay. Anyone want to come over and watch it afterwards? Just get in touch with me. So we're doing a bit of a kind of a variety show. You've noticed we've been doing some things not just stand-up. And so I've actually just prepared a short story. And hopefully it will be also kind of entertaining. We'll see. Here we go. Terence Stoddard was, like so many tragic protagonists before him, tragically shy. His was also the tragedy of having a long consonant sound at the beginning of his last name and the end of his first name, with endless S. Of course, Terence's real tragedy was being cripplingly reserved. He was too nervous to engage in almost any social activity. He was especially nervous, as one might expect, around women, almost terrified. If he had had clever friends, they would have probably called him Terrified Terry or something like that. But he didn't have many friends, and they weren't very clever. A little over a year ago, Terence had moved to Philadelphia, the city of brotherly love. He had made good progress. Nights once spent with some organic tea or another at home were eventually spent in the library, and as of recently spent with a conservatively priced local beer at any one of a few bars near his apartment. Mostly Terence Stoddard sat by himself, feigning interest in whatever sports were on the big television. After all, from what we know of Terence, we wouldn't assume he actually cares about sport. I know what they say about assumptions, and I assume Terence does as well, but in this case our assumptions would be correct. He had the unfortunate habit of rambling about pet peeves at the first sign of an awkward pause. A conversation asking whether tonight's game was in Buffalo or Miami would end shortly thereafter with Terence blurting, "Don't you hate it when a store leaves its open sign on even when the store is closed? I mean, what's the point of the sign anyway?" At which point, most friendly small talkers would smile and take their drinks elsewhere. So it continued, most every weekend. He would go out alone, drink for the most part alone, and leave alone at the end of the night. Then one night, something happened that would change Terence Stoddard's life in a silly and melodramatic way. One night, he entered a bar where he had never been, and he saw a woman that he had never seen. She had an alluring, mysterious face and long, dark hair. Her slender body walked with a kind of strength that Terence found captivating. He picked a seat where he could watch her while appearing to be watching whatever sport was being played on the large television. All night, he watched her while absent-mindedly nursing a pint of beer. She laughed and flirted as a few men came and went. There was always a group around her, and when there wasn't, she found a group. Without noticing, Terence finished his beer and continued sipping from an empty glass. Soon the bartender approached, asking if he wanted another drink. Because it was slow, the barman asked who he was rooting for. Panicked, Terence responded, "You know what bugs me?" Before launching into a rant about how he hated that they used a Ford Mustang in the remake of Knight Rider, when the original had clearly used a Pontiac Firebird. I mean, really, what is up with that? Both, I mean, it's bad anyway. I heard. He sat alone for the rest of the night. The mysterious, beautiful woman went home with a handsome, stylishly dressed man, and our friend Terence, if you don't mind me calling him a friend, went home all alone again. The week felt torturously long, like something else that's long and boring. I would say like Peter Jackson's King Kong, but perhaps for you there's a more relevant choice, and I didn't want to make that decision for you, so if you want, you can say maybe the DMV, the dentist, or the Koanakatsi. Personally, I really like the Katsi films, but that's neither here nor there. Needless to say, Terence Stoddard was tapping his fingers and twiddling his thumbs all week, hoping he would see that woman again on the weekend. Finally, the week reached its bland conclusion, and he prepared to go out for the evening, optimistic that he would at least get the chance to observe her behavior further. And the excitement, as can happen to anyone, he came a bit prematurely, arriving at the bar at only 9:30. Because of this, he had already finished 2 beers, a celebratory shot in honor of an effeminate man's birthday, and was drinking a 3rd beer when his new crush walked in, wearing a tightly fitting blue dress with a tan canvas jacket. Cute outfit, Terence thought to himself with a bashful smile. It turned out to be serendipitous that he had had more alcohol than planned, made him more confident and talkative when she appeared and when she approached him. "Hi," she said. "Wow, hi," Terence responded. She had a smooth, sexy voice. Ray Davies would have described it as dark brown. They chatted pleasantly for a few minutes. Terrence even managed to say something that made her laugh, but he couldn't remember what it was. Her name was Brianna. Eventually, the moment Terrence was dreading came when the conversation reached its first natural lull. Terrence knew that he was only moments away from a rant sure to chase Brianna away like Hunter's orange chases away wildlife. Or anybody that reads books. He bit his lip. And now we got a little section here. You have to bear with me. I need to skip some pages. This is how organized I am. He bit his lip, trying to restrain himself. Her glances went from him to her drink, and then began to wander as the moment lingered. Then, like a weak dam, finally releasing a river, Terrence said, Don't you hate it when you're waiting at a red light just long enough for one car to come the other way, just so he has to wait while your light turns green? And then he waited. Brianna looked back at him with a smile in her eyes. Because then what's the point of me having waited, she responded. You'd think there'd be a way to time the lights better. Exactly, Terrence said, astoundedly. He felt something in that moment he wasn't sure if he had ever felt before. He forced himself to remain cautiously optimistic, but it was a sensation that felt to him like mutual understanding. For lack of a better word, he felt a connection. So the night continued. They continued to drink and they continued to chat. Shortly before midnight, Brianna finished some pink cocktail Terrence had bought her, and she looked at him with a crooked smile and a glint in her eye. Her shoulders seemed confident and strong to him. So, you live around here? She asked. Yeah, just about around the corner, Terrence replied, his speech slurring. I didn't feel like slurring when I was saying it. I imagine he'd be slurring speech at this point. Maybe you could, show me around, she said mischievously. Every part of Terrence's being reacted. His skin flushed. His heart leapt into his throat. His mind vaporized, and his pants shrank several sizes, if you catch my meaning. Now, Terrence was no prude, but needless to say, this was a very new situation for him. He collected himself, and he responded that he thought that was a wonderful idea. After closing his tab and dropping $1 on the bar for a tip, Brianna put an arm around Terrence, and the two left. They staggered together and helped keep each other walking straight. Her arm held him firmly. About half a block passed. They were almost back, when before he even knew what was happening, Terrence said, you know what bugs me? When you're standing at the toilet to pee in the morning or something, and the stream is split just wide enough so both won't make it into the toilet, and there's this moment of sheer panic. And as Terrence said the words sheer panic, it hit him what he was saying. He froze. His mind raced, but he had no idea what to do in this, what felt like the worst moment of his life. Brianna looked at him and smiled encouragingly. Her dark, mysterious eyes pierced his thought. Then with a surprisingly sensual voice, she said, because once you start the flow, you can't stop, so you hope you can just push through and clean up afterwards. These words flowed with the confidence Terrence found typical of Brianna, but also carried an impenetrable sense of understanding. Terrence blinked, not sure what was happening. Gradually, a realization began to sink in about the implications of Brianna's response. In the streetlight, Terrence became aware of a bristly 5 o'clock shadow. His head continued to spin, and the first thought it settled on was Brianna's understanding smile. So he shrugged his shoulders, took Brianna by the hand, and continued home. As far as I know, that's not based on